I've got a real treat for you now, folks. This is a mother and baby koala bear. And they're sleeping. I call them sleeping koala bears. And it's a mummy and baby. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. You're going to like this. Although I've got to tell you that I think probably Pastel Pencils is really the only medium that will do this justice. I think you'll see why as we go along. Now, any furry animals look great in Pastel Pencils, but the koala bear is a bit exceptional. Now what I'm doing now is I'm just going down, working in the direction that we see the fur lying in, as usual. And what I was doing earlier, while I was talking, I was just rubbing out. I've drawn this in, but I just want to take some of that dark markings off. And yes, the koala, any furry animal needs a direction of fur, and this is what I'm doing here. This is the ear, as you can see, and I'm working in it. I'm going to show you the whole of this ear. I may skip some of it. In fact, I'm going to skip quite a lot of it when we get to the fur, because it's very much the same. So I'll show you all you need to know, and then I'll advance it. Now that's the shape that I'm looking for on the ear. I don't want it to be too regular. That's what I'm looking. Now, of course, as usual, we'll be putting a background on that. So there's no point in bringing the hair too far out. I might well do that, but I'm not going to do it now, because it would be no pointless. Because when I rub that around with my background, when I put that in, it will be all smudged in. No point in doing it twice, so you have to wait and be patient for the time when that will happen. Now I've got quite a lot of whiting, but you see I've left holes. Now there's a good reason for that. It's not me being lazy. On the outside edge of the ear is mostly, you've got the light, and you've got a little bit here, which I quite like the idea on my reference picture, a little tuft like that. Now all of this is going to be white, but there's no putting white on white, is there? Because you won't see it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a grey. Now this is 270, and this particular picture will be using both the cool greys and the warm greys. And this is a warm grey. And it's unusual. I usually either stick to one or the other, but in this you'll see the sense of that as we go on. Now that's putting some warm grey in, and now I'm going to put some medium grey in. Now the medium grey, 273, so that's 101 white, 270 for the mid grey, light grey, sorry, and 273 for the mid grey. Very much exploratory, these first strokes. I'm just sort of seeing how the land lies, basically. But what I'm really looking for is to create an edge there which is light but has a little bit of depth to it. Okay, that would be fine. Now, having done that, what I'm going to do now is use my colour shaper, the good old colour shaper. Make sure it's clean. And we're going to put that in. There you go. Terrific. Good. So that's so far so good. Now, what we can do now is we can now bring the white down here. Couldn't do it before, but now I can. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I need something to butt up to. When I finish the ear off, it will be darker than the head. And right at the top of the head here, it's light. I'm going to put that in. That will continue down here. And just take this little bit of that off there. good idea to remove that, because when you're using white, the white can pick up on the graphite that I'm using there. There we are, that's right. I don't need to worry about any more here, this is all going to be done later on. But that's what I was looking for. Now you see, now we have a very distinct line between the two. So I can now work on the ear. I'll come closer now so you can see it. I just wanted to see it as an overall view. But I'll come closer and we'll work on that ear. I'll turn it round like this because it's better for me to work and push when I'm doing something like this. Okay, here we go. I'm going to put quite a lot of white there because I don't want that to be interfered with. So where I want it to be stronger. Okay, now what I'm doing now is use the colour shaper again, just to make absolutely sure I've covered all the paper up, because I don't want the same colour paper coming through here. See, there's traces of it there, just there. Now I think it might seem petty, let's just put a little bit more of that colour in, but it's really important if you're going to do a picture this kind to make sure that you've got no interference from the same colour. But you see what would happen if a dark colour hit that, it would register too dark. That's great. Now I can't see any paper showing through, so I'm ready to go. Now start off with the mead grey, and here I'm going to put a little bit more pressure. And notice that I'm holding the pencil like that. Now the reason I do that is because I want it to come as low as I can onto the pastel paper, so I can push away. And this is the idea, is to try to create the effects of hair, but they're very unusual. The koala bear is a really unusual. It's like a. I can't really describe it. It's almost like a barbed wire if you look at it. Not barbed wire, you know, wire. Steel wool. That's what I'm trying to say. You know the steel wool that you can get. It's a bit like that, and I imagine, I've never held one, but I imagine that that's how they feel. But they're a very popular animal, and I thought it would be a lovely idea to do one. A little bit darker. Now I've left it quite a lot of light. I'm coming back in with the white, because at this stage, if I can keep the white there, it means that the darker colours I put in will register better. Now the darker colour I'm going to use will probably surprise you. It's 175, and on its own it will be quite dark, but because we're using it on top of all these other colours, it's weakened, so we get a weakened effect. And this is easy compared with the fur that we're going to be doing down here in a minute. You'll see that. This is pretty straightforward. A bit of depth in there. Lovely. Now, I'm going to use the colour shaper, and this time with a little bit more care. I'm using the corner. Keeping in mindful that we have that light edge that denotes the head from the ear. Now because this dark colour 175 is being blended in and combined with the lighter colours, you see it's actually quite light. But I don't really want it, perhaps a little darker than that, but not much. Maybe a little bit just here, add a little more like that, so we get a contrast between the white adjacent to it. Now I'm pretty happy with that. Now the other thing I'm going to do is another technique. You've probably seen me do this before. Instead of stroking it, I'm patting it, and what the patting does, it just creates a different effect. I hope that you can see that on the screen. It's not a stroke as such. It's like dabbing it with your finger, but it's better than your finger in a situation like this. It just pushes it into the paper without actually blending it too much. Now that's fantastic. That it really does look as I wanted it to. I'm very close. I will probably go in later on and put some more fur. In fact, I'll do it now. Just with the odd stray hairs, because there's nothing regular about this at all. And then, folks, you leave it alone. Don't touch it again. Now, just make sure we've still got that nice crisp edge. Now, I'm going to continue now. Let me just go up here, because we're nearly at the stage when we've got to start doing the head. I could do the ear, but really I'd rather do the head to start with, so we can start the ball rolling, then the ear. And what I'm going to do is make sure I haven't got any... Oh, that's all right. I can just see that line, so I know where I'm going with it. And goes right up to there. And that's where it stops. Okay, so we'll concentrate on that area there. Now, this is the bit that I've been looking forward to, but also being wary of. And you'll notice that what I'm doing, first of all, is I've got to make sure that that edge there is nice and bright, which it is. And as we come down here, we leave a lot more of the paper, but you notice the action. Twiddle, 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 twiddle. It's like that. Like that. Now, this is going to take me quite a long time to do that, so I'm going to advance that a little bit, and then I'll come down to about, what do you think about there? Okay, so I'll draw my line, and that will give us a nice large area to play with. Okay, but I'll continue, and you can come back when I finish this. In fact, what I will do, just to save even more time, I'm going to go in and knock that in with the 270 as well. And that goes over. What I don't want to do is to put too much of it on. That's lovely. Just right. Okay, so I'll be putting the white and that on. Same as that. There we are. That's the two colours put in, 101 and 270. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm going over some of the areas again with the white where we have a concentration of white in the fur. Okay. I'll do the top half and then I'll do the second part of it off camera. But this is the top half. There's a lot of dark fur here, so consequently you can see there's lots of paper tone showing through. There are some areas, just here for instance there, where it's quite strong. In fact, it's quite tight around here too. Let me just do that too. Okay, that'll do. Now, conversely, because these areas are darker, I'm going in with the 273. I'm going in with, it's going to look a bit patchy when I leave here, but that was intentional, but it won't stay that way. But what I'm doing is picking up the opposite to what I was doing with the white just now. It doesn't have to be absolutely spot on accurate, because each koala bear is going to be different to the next. But it's a nice idea to get the general idea of how this is going to work. So it's quite dark there. Okay. Now, as I said, it looks patchy, doesn't it? Okay, now just concentrate a little bit more on that so we have a really deeper colour. Okay, now what I want to do now is to go over the whole thing again, with the exception possibly of this edge here with the 273. You can see now what's happening is I'm linking up. It's a long old job. Don't expect this one to be done quickly. But it's a fabulous teaching aid. You'll find that when you finish this, you'll be exhausted, but you'll have learned an awful lot about fur. And there aren't many animals with this kind of fur, so you won't come across them often. But it's nice to have a little bit of variation. Now, having done that, what we do is blend it. Now you can imagine what would happen now if I just blend the whole lot together. It would just be one mess. So what we do, we use the corner of the paper blender, the colour shaper. You could use a paper blender, I wouldn't suggest it. It's nowhere near as good as the colour shaper for this. And you just put it in like that. Go over the whole thing, just pushing the colour into it. I did say it was a long job, didn't I? Yeah. Well, I'm afraid it is, but it's good fun. Okay. You can see why I can't do the whole thing. It would take forever. But there we are. Now we push that in. Good. Now, what we've got to do now is to put a little bit of 175. We used that back here earlier. Now here we're going to be doing really almost a carbon copy of what we just did earlier with the 273. And that is to darken just certain bits of it. Like that. Going over those same areas again. Then you come out here with a little bit out here, but not too much. What we want is quite a lot of light left, but we do want a lot of dark added to it. Now, when I looked at this picture, I thought if I do a smaller one, I won't have to do as many hairs. And that is very true, and I could have copped out. But to be honest, you wouldn't have got the detail that I can get in when I do a larger picture. So I've elected to bite the bullet and do a large picture. Now, good, same as before. But what we now do is just to use the 175 a little bit lighter and just put in, again, just a tone in there. Be surprised how much light would be left after we finish this. That is the general idea. Now there's certain areas here that are very dark and hardly any colour at all coming through. So we just push a few. Now it's very easy here to make them look blotchy. So be careful. If it appears to do, it's going to look blotchy, just pull back a little bit. There's one thing, we're working from light to dark here. And it's going to be tricky, although I'm going to be showing you how you can put light back on. You want to get it as close as you can to what I'm looking for. Same again. Push the colour in the same way as I showed you earlier. When it picks up on that, you can bring it out into the lighter colours as well. It's a little bonus, really. Now, I don't think there's any shortcut to this. I mean, I wish there was, but there isn't. You'll have to do it the way I'm doing it. And we've got a lot of fur to do, but you've got to bear in mind that when you've finished, it's going to look stunning. It already is starting to look that way. Now you see, if we analyse what we've done here, gone that several times over. But we've got a lot of variation, haven't we? Now, if we were to just leave that like that, and then just put some white back in, you wouldn't think you could do this, would you? But you can. One reason you can do it is because I've got a sharp point, and the second reason is because we've blended it. So although we've got the colour there, it's actually sort of gone in now. See how I'm twisting the pencil around, and you get the. Now I've got quite a few. I've got 3 whites on the go here. So once the point starts to diminish, then I change pencils. Now that is very, very close, folks, to the actual koala bear's fur. You wouldn't settle for anything less now, would you? Isn't that good? See the way you're twisting it around like this. As I say, you'll have lots and lots of practice at this as you do the remaining fur. Okay, that's good. And occasionally, just here and there, just get in just a little bit more. You see how much brighter that is, just a little bit. And the other way of doing it is because when you've got it really dark, you can just push in here and there really dark colours in between. Now I'm not putting any black on at the moment. I probably will do, but I'm not going to do it yet. I want to see how that looks. But that is stunning. And that looks perfect. That's very close to the original fur that we have. So what we've got to do is that all the way down there now. So I shall repeat that. I'll show you in the stop-start, so you'll see me doing it, but you'll only see little bits of it as I complete that section. And then we move on to the ear, folks, over here, which is, again, that's fabulous to do. You'll enjoy that. Now, I was going to do the ear next, but I've changed my mind. I want to bring the fur down to below the eye. And what we'll do there is we just use the side of the white pencil and the grey 270. Now it's still fur, but it's like a shorter fur. Now I haven't used any blender on that at the moment, and I don't intend to. What I want to do is then scumble around it. In other words, we do the eye almost separately. I mean, we can link this up if you like. Might be nice just to do the two together. But what we've got to do mainly is to separate that eye from the fur. Put that on first, there's leaving plenty of gaps for 270. And this is when, of course, the two colours virtually can go together. And because I've got a line around there, I can see, a very faint line, I can see where I'm meant to be going. Okay. Now both of these koalas have got the eyes closed, and I think this is rather nice I don't normally like to do eyes, but it makes a change. And here we do exactly as we've done before. Now this is where we've got to be careful. This is the area that the eye has its short fur there, and it stretches about here. Now there's a hard line in there at the moment, and I suppose I could leave it there because it's going to be dark anyway. I'll think about that while I'm doing this. There's a pencil line at the moment, but I can easily go over that. And it's very short. The fur itself gets shorter in this area, so we're not as fluffy as we are above. I'm trying to reflect that. Now you see how that works out. It's nice, isn't it? Now we can use our colour shaper just to blend that in. We've got our three colours now, and we can blend that as well, very, very lightly. Good. Excellent. Now, we can now bring just a little more of the 273 in. And now we want the 174. Now this is where, 175 I mean, this is where we've got to be careful. Remember, as I said, it's stronger here, but it actually weakens as you get towards the eye itself. In other words, not quite so strong. Anyway, this has taken a long time, but you can see where I'm coming from. Now, what about the centre of the eye? I've got to decide what to do there. I think what I do to be safe, I'm going to rub it out. Use the hard end of the double-ended eraser. There we are. And I'm going to put directly into that, I'm going to put the 273. That was a good decision. And into that we want 175. Like that. Good. Excellent. Now what we're going to do now is, I'm not worried about the fur, I've got that in now. I'm just going to put a little bit of shading. And if I can put the shading on the edge of there, I think we'll shade this as well. Yes, that looks good. And as I said, there is hair there, and that's going to have to be lighter there. Yep, do. So just a touch of shade on the underside of the eye. Good. Now I'm going to put it onto colouring for the first time. I'm going to use a 169. A 169 is the sort of grey mauvey colour, but it actually works very well if you want to add just a little tone, and which I do here and here. That's 169. Yeah, that's lovely. And a little bit in here. Good. Now I'm going to use my 270 to blend that in. That's lovely. See, sometimes the pencil is better to blend than the colour shaper. And just go back over that to make sure that's a little darker. I'll probably put a bit of black in there in the end. That looks good to me. 270 again. That's great. I think that's as far as we want it to go. Don't want any more than that. And we just put just a little bit of 175 here. Just a smidgen, just darken that edge up there, that's fine. And then we'll do the same here. And play with your colours now. It's 169, 175. Then we want to blend it out with 270. Now you can do this several times until you get exactly what you're looking for. Now all I want to do now is put just a little bit of white on there. Just a touch. That's lovely. And by doing that, we can pull the white back to create that furry look I was talking about. Very fine fur. That looks good. It's going to work down here if it works above. If it doesn't, you just simply go in with your 273 and add a little bit more. But that looks good. Okay. Now I'll do a little bit more work on that, but basically what you've seen what is necessary there. Now 175, just pick up on the edges of that to create the look. Great. It's just exactly the same down here. We have a very short hair indicated by that. Lovely. Now, what I'll do now is I think I'll go round that eye using the same technique as I've done here, and then you can come back to, again, I'll show you stop-start so that you see how it's working. But what we need to do really is to come down a little bit further here. I didn't really come down low enough for the eye. The eye has got to come down. I'll just do it with the white. That's where I've got to bring this to. Okay.